One of the most common questions I see in the comments under every Tesla motorhome video is the same question every single time. Where do you charge it? And it sounds simple, but it isn't, because the people asking that question aren't thinking about charging on a city street. They're not asking about a parking garage in downtown Dallas. They're thinking about somewhere quiet, a national park, a mountain town in Colorado, a stretch of Arizona desert where the nearest gas station is 50 miles behind you and you didn't write down the name. Because that's where retirees actually want to go, not the highway, the places the highway doesn't reach. And here is the honest answer that most videos won't give you. A motorhome this size does not charge like a car. It never will. And if you don't understand why, that single misunderstanding could cost you more than you're prepared to lose. Stay with me, because in the next 20 minutes, we're going to answer this question completely with real numbers, real infrastructure data, and a straight comparison against the RVs that millions of Americans are already driving today. No hype, no sales pitch, just the facts. How retirees actually travel. Before we talk about charging, we need to talk about something more fundamental: how retirees actually move. Because most people, when they imagine motorhome travel, picture a road trip, drive all day, pull into a campground at 7 p.m., sleep, drive again, like a freight truck with a nicer mattress. That is not how retired Americans travel, and understanding this changes the entire charging conversation. The typical retirement travel pattern looks like this. Drive 2 to 3 hours, no more than 150 miles, find a location you actually want to see, and stay for 4 to 7 days before moving again. Longer if the fishing is good, longer still if the grandkids are within driving distance. There's a reason for this pattern. Fatigue is real after 65. Campground reservations at good locations fill up weeks in advance. And after a lifetime of rushing, the whole point of retirement travel is that you don't have to rush anymore. This travel pattern, drive a little, stay a long time, is the single most important factor in whether an electric motorhome works for you. Burn that into your memory. We'll come back to it. Now, before we talk about what Tesla is building, let's talk about what you're comparing it to. Because the vehicles already on the road tell us a lot about what range and refueling actually mean in practice. The Rvs Americans use today. There are 3 major categories of motorhome on American roads today. If you've spent any time at an RV park or a national park campground, you've seen all of them. The first category is the Class A motorhome. This is the big one, the bus-shaped vehicle you see taking up a lane and a half on the interstate. Models like the Winnebago Adventurer, the Tiffin Allegro, and the Newmar Baystar fall into this class. These vehicles run 30 to 45 feet long, and their fuel tanks hold 80 to 100 gallons of diesel. The fuel economy? 6 to 10 miles per gallon, depending on load, terrain, and headwind. On a full tank, a Class A diesel can travel 600 to 800 miles before stopping. Refueling takes about 5 minutes at any truck stop. The second category is the Class C motorhome, smaller chassis, usually built on a Ford or Chevrolet platform. Models like the Winnebago Mini Winnie, the Forest River Sunseeker, and the Coachman Leprechaun. These get 10 to 14 miles per gallon and carry enough fuel for 350 to 500 miles of range. Popular with couples and small families. The third is the Class B camper van, the most compact option. The Winnebago Travado, the Airstream Interstate, the Road Trek Zion. These are efficient, getting 18 to 25 miles per gallon. Limited living space, but easy to drive and easy to park. Here is the critical number connecting all 3 categories. The United States has approximately 145,000 to 150,000 fuel stations across the country. 93% of Americans live within 10 minutes of a gas station. For an RV owner, refueling is never a logistical event that requires planning. You see a sign, you pull in, you're back on the road in 5 minutes.
That is the baseline. That is what you're comparing against. Now let's talk about what happens when you swap the fuel tank for a battery.
Why charging is different. A Tesla Model Y, a passenger car, carries a 75 kilowatt-hour battery. That gives it roughly 330 miles of highway range and charges at a standard supercharger in about 25 minutes. An electric motorhome the size of what's being developed around the Tesla Semi platform would carry an estimated 200 to 220 kilowatt-hours of usable battery capacity. That's roughly 3 times the energy of a passenger car. And the vehicle weighs significantly more, faces far greater wind resistance from its flat front face, and runs climate control, a refrigerator, and appliances continuously, not just the drivetrain. The result, estimated real-world driving range of 250 to 320 miles under ideal conditions. In cold weather, mountain terrain, or against a headwind, expect 150 to 220 miles before charging becomes necessary. Now here's the part that most coverage skips past entirely because it's the part that actually determines whether this vehicle is practical for your life. A motorhome this size cannot use a standard Tesla supercharger. Those chargers are designed for passenger vehicles, drawing 150 to 250 kilowatts. A vehicle with a 200-plus kilowatt-hour battery pack requires what Tesla calls Megacharger infrastructure, industrial-scale charging capable of delivering up to 1.2 megawatts of power. That is roughly 20 times the output of a standard home charger. So the question isn't whether the battery is big enough. The question is, where are those megachargers? Tesla's Megacharger reality. Let me give you the actual numbers as of March 2026. Tesla has publicly updated its charging map to show 66 total Megacharger locations planned across 15 states. As of this recording, exactly 3 of those locations are operational: Carson, California, Sparks, Nevada, and a newly opened customer-facing station in Ontario, California, which opened on March 8, 2026, at the intersection of I-10 and I-15 in the Inland Empire Freight Corridor. Every other location on the map is marked Coming Soon. Tesla's semi-program lead, Dan Priestley, has publicly stated the goal of deploying 46 Megacharger stations by early 2027. Tesla's own Q4 financial report identified 37 sites planned for 2026. And in January 2026, Tesla signed a partnership with Pilot Travel Centers, the largest truck stop operator in North America, with over 900 locations in 44 states, to begin installing Megacharger stalls at select pilot locations. Construction at the first pilot sites in California, Georgia, Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas is scheduled to begin in the first half of 2026, with the first stations expected to open by summer 2026. That's 3 stations open today, a target of 37 by end of 2026, and a long-term plan for 66 across 15 states. Now compare that to 145,000 gas stations. I'm not saying that to dismiss the technology. I'm saying it because you deserve to see the gap clearly. The existing Megacharger network follows one logic: major freight corridors. Interstate 5 on the West Coast, Interstate 10 running east-west from California to Florida, Interstate 40 across the southern tier. These are the routes freight trucks drive. These are the routes where the infrastructure is being built. Texas leads the planned rollout with 19 sites. California follows with 17. Florida, Georgia, Illinois, and Washington State each have 4 planned locations. Notice what's not on that list: Wyoming, Montana, the Ozarks, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the back roads of Maine, the Gulf Coast barrier islands, the places retirees actually want to spend a week. That gap between where the infrastructure is and where you want to go is the single most important thing to understand about this vehicle in 2026. The rural America problem.
Let me not soften this. If you want to spend the winter in Quartzsite, Arizona, one of the largest gathering spots for full-time RVers in the country, the nearest planned Megacharger location is in Phoenix, roughly 130 miles away. That works if your battery arrives in Quartzsite at 50% or better. If you want to drive the Going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park in Montana, there is no planned Megacharger anywhere near Glacier. The closest confirmed sites are in Washington State or along I-90 in Idaho. If you want to park for a week on BLM land outside of Moab, Utah, there's one planned site in Utah, and its location along I-70 puts it roughly 25 to 45 miles from the most popular remote camping areas. This is not a deal breaker for every retiree, but it is a deal breaker for some. And you need to know which category you fall into before this vehicle ever leaves the lot.
How RV parks solve charging. Here's where the conversation shifts, and this is where the retirement travel pattern becomes your advantage rather than your limitation. Most established RV parks in America already offer 50-amp electrical hookups. These are the same outlets that power the air conditioner, microwave, and water heater in a traditional diesel motorhome. They were never designed for EV charging, but with the right adapter, a 50-amp hookup functions as a level 2 charger. What does that mean in practical terms? At a 50-amp hookup, you're adding roughly 20 to 25 miles of range per hour of charging. Overnight, say 10 hours plugged in, you can restore 200 to 250 miles of range. For a retiree who drives 150 miles to a new location and then parks for 5 days, that one overnight charge at the campground standard hookup may be all you ever need. You don't need a Megacharger if you're not in a hurry, and the whole point of retirement is that you're not in a hurry. This is also where the solar roof enters the picture. An estimated 2-kilowatt integrated solar array on a clear day in the Southwest generates 10 to 12 kilowatt-hours of usable electricity. Over 5 days parked in Sedona, Arizona, that's 50 to 60 kilowatt-hours returned to the battery without plugging into anything. That translates to roughly 60 to 80 miles of recovered range just from sitting still in the sun. In sunny states, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, Southern California, this fundamentally changes the energy math. You charge slowly while you live. You arrive at the next location with a battery that's recovered significantly since you left the last one. The lifestyle and the technology fit each other in a way that most reviewers, most of whom are not retired, never notice.
The charging model that works. Let me make this concrete with a realistic scenario. You leave Albuquerque, New Mexico on a Monday morning with a full charge, estimated 300 miles of range. You drive southwest toward Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, about 140 miles. You arrive with the battery at approximately 55 to 60% capacity. You find a BLM camping area along Elephant Butte Lake, free to use, no reservation required. The site has no electrical hookup, but there's a full hookup RV park in the town of Truth or Consequences, 4 miles away. You check in for 2 nights at the end of your stay, plug into their 50-amp service at roughly $45 a night, and wake up both mornings with the battery between 85 and 95%. During the 5 days you're parked at the BLM site, the solar roof is running. Every day of New Mexico sun adds back 10 to 12 kilowatt hours. Your Starlink connection is live the entire time. You video call your daughter in Virginia on Thursday evening. Your CPAP runs silently through every night. The air conditioning holds the interior at 72 degrees through afternoon temperatures that hit 91 outside. Total driving cost for the week, under $15 in electricity. Total parking cost, $90 for the 2 nights at the hookup site. The 5 BLM nights, free. Now compare that number to what you're paying right now for a roof over your head. The math isn't close, and it gets even wider the longer you stay. Electric versus diesel. Real numbers. Let me put two vehicles side by side and run the actual numbers. A 2025 Class A diesel motorhome, a Winnebago Adventurer or similar, costs $120,000 to $180,000 new. Fuel economy? 8 to 10 miles per gallon of diesel at current prices around $3.50 to $3.75 per gallon as of early 2026. At 10,000 miles of annual driving, that's $3,500 to $4,700 in fuel every year, minimum. Add another $2,000 to $4,000 annually in scheduled maintenance, oil changes at $300 to $500 each, transmission service, generator overhaul, exhaust maintenance. A typical diesel Class A costs $5,500 to $8,700 per year just to operate before you've paid for a single campsite. Now consider the electric motorhome scenario using the realistic charging model we just walked through. At 10,000 miles of annual driving, with a mix of 50-amp campground hookups, occasional solar recharge, and intermittent Megacharger use where available, the estimated annual energy cost runs $800 to $1,400. Maintenance on an electric drivetrain with one primary moving part, no oil, no transmission fluid, no exhaust system, no generator, is estimated at $300 to $600 annually. Total annual operating cost, roughly $1,100 to $2,000. That is a difference of $4,000 to $6,700 every year. Over 10 years, that's $40,000 to $67,000, money that stays in your pocket, or goes to your health care, or gets passed to the people you care about most. And the purchase price differential, if the Tesla motorhome lands near the $9,990 to $30,000 range being discussed by industry analysts, makes the 10-year total cost comparison even more decisive. But I want to be direct about one thing. That purchase price is not confirmed. As of March 2026, no official Tesla motorhome has been announced, no price has been published by Tesla, and no reservation system exists through any legitimate channel. If anyone contacts you with an offer to reserve a Tesla motorhome for a deposit, walk away immediately. That is a scam, full stop. Tesla does not collect deposits through third parties for unannounced products.
3 simple conclusions. I said at the beginning I would give you honest conclusions. Here they are. First, the charging infrastructure for an electric motorhome this size exists in 2026, but it is limited to 3 operational Megacharger sites and a growing network of RV park 50-amp hookups. For major interstate corridors and established campgrounds, the infrastructure is workable today. For remote off-grid travel in states like Montana, Wyoming, or rural New England, you need a plan before you go. Second, a diesel motorhome remains significantly more convenient for long-distance travel in 2026. 145,000 gas stations versus 3 operational Megachargers is not a close comparison. If you drive 300 miles every other day and camp in a new location every night, a diesel Class C is the more practical vehicle for that lifestyle today. Third, an electric motorhome works extremely well and may actually work better than diesel for the slower retirement travel pattern. Drive 150 miles, stay for a week. Charge overnight at the RV park's standard hookup. Let the solar roof do its work while you're sitting in a camp chair. Move again when you're ready. That is the retirement model the electric motorhome is built for, and it is the lifestyle most retirees actually want, not the one they thought they wanted when they were 45. If that is how you move through the world, the charging infrastructure question answers itself.
Here's what I want you to take with you. The charging question is the right question. It doesn't kill the electric motorhome. It reveals who this vehicle is built for and who it isn't. If you want to drive 400 miles in rural Wyoming and recharge in 30 minutes at a truck stop that doesn't exist yet, this is not your vehicle, not in 2026. Know that before you commit a single dollar to anyone who says otherwise. But if you want to drive 150 miles to somewhere you've always meant to go, park in the sun for a week, and never hand $4,500 a year to a diesel pump again, that infrastructure already exists in campgrounds across America, in RV parks with 50-amp hookups on every row, in a network that added 64 planned stations in a single month of 2026. Not a perfect story, but a real one, and that's all this channel will ever give you. 2 questions before you go, and I read every comment personally. First, would the current charging infrastructure work for how you actually travel, or is it a deal breaker? 1 sentence. Those answers shape what I cover next. Second, electric motorhome that costs almost nothing to run but needs charging discipline, or a diesel RV you can fuel anywhere in 5 minutes. Which and why? Subscribe and turn on the bell. This channel doesn't manufacture excitement about technology that isn't ready. It gives you real numbers and honest limitations before a decision affects the independence you spent 40 years building. No hype, no sales pitch, no agenda except the truth. Next video, could an electric motorhome work as a full-time permanent home? Real water, real waste management, solar that outlasts a week of clouds. One system makes or breaks that answer. Almost no reviewer mentions it. I will. Make sure you're here for it. I'll see you in the next one.